All right, guys. Questions on the homework? Questions on any of the homework assignments? All right. If there's no questions on the homework, we're going to go on and look at this here. Solving these equations. Now, the big thing we need to do first, in a lot of the cases, is to see what our restrictions are. Our restrictions are going to be the values of x that make the denominator be 0. That's the values of x we cannot have. Because if we do have them, we're going to have this division of 0. It's not going to work. Can't have that. So one of the places is 2x. And if we solve for it, we would divide both sides by 2, telling us x cannot be 0. We cannot divide by 0, and unfortunately, funny enough, if x is 0, we would get a division of 0. With our x plus 1, we minus 1 from both sides, telling us if x is equal to -1, we have a division of 0. So for this here, x cannot be 0 or -1, because if x is 0 or -1, we have a division of 0. It does not work. Now that we have that, we need to figure out what we need to multiply everything by to get these fractions to reduce down. Because it's going to be a lot easier to solve. It's going to be a lot nicer to solve if we're not having to work with fractions. So what's one thing we can multiply through? So 3 over 2x, what would I need to multiply by to get that denominator to go away? Yeah. I can see that you have it right there. What's your guess? Because what's on bottom? 2 and what else? X. Because if I multiply this by 2x, we have 2x on top and bottom. And since we'd have 2x over 2x, anything divided by itself is 1. Those would cancel. So they'd simplify out. So we just need to multiply by 2x. If we look at the middle term, that 2x and this 2x would also cancel. So we don't need it more than once, because just multiplying it through once simplified those two fractions. Now our last fraction, 3x over x plus 1, that 2x will not simplify with the denominator. For it, we need x plus 1. So we're also going to have to multiply everything by x plus 1. So its denominator will simplify. Questions on this here? We good with this here so far? Now we need to multiply with what we have left. In the first fraction, what we have left is 3x times 2x, because the x plus 1 over x plus 1 simplified, minus 5. The 2x simplified, but we still have the x plus 1, equals 3 times x plus 1, because the 2x over 2x simplified. Questions on how we got to this point? All right. Now at this point here, we need to start solving. So we're going to multiply 3x times 2x. Well, 3 times 2 is 6. X times x is x squared. Minus our negative 5 times x is going to be negative 5x. Our negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. Equals, on the right hand side, our 3 times x is 3x. Our 3 times 1 is going to be plus 3. Now, since we do have a quadratic, we have that x squared term, we're going to need to get this equation equal to 0. And we can do that by adding or subtracting terms to both sides. Now, it's going to be easier or nicer if we get everything on the x squared side. So the first thing we can do here is subtract 3x from both sides to get this equation equal to 0. Now, we'll still have the 6x squared term, but our negative 5x minus 3x, negative 5 minus 3, is going to be negative 8x. We'll still have the minus 5 equals our 3x minus 3x will cancel, leaving us with 3. Now at this point here, we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. Our 3 minus 3 would be 0. And what we'll have here is 6x squared minus 8x minus 8 is equal to 0. Questions on how we got this equal to 0? Now at this point here, we can factor this here to solve. And when we factor, the first thing we're looking for is the greatest common factor. And the common number between 6, 8, and 8 is going to be 2. So we can remove 2. We can factor 2 out. If I factor 2 out of 6x squared, we'll get 3x squared. If I divide that 2 out of 8x, 8 divided by 2 is going to give us 4, so 4x. And if we divide 2 out of 8, we also get 4. To factor our 3x squared minus 4x minus 4, we'll write our two sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Since the third term is negative, it tells us our signs are opposite. One's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. Factors of 3x squared, well, the x squared part would be x and x. And the only factors of 3 are 3 and 1. Now the factors of our third term, the factors of 4, are 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. Which set of factors do we want to try first? 1 and 4 or 2 and 2? Well, we can try 2 and 2 first. Now again, we can set it up and we'll check to make sure we get the correct middle term. Now 3 times negative 2x, 3x times negative 2 is going to be negative 6x. 2 times x is going to be positive 2x. Negative 6x plus 2x, negative 6 plus 2 is going to be negative 4x. And that is indeed the middle term we wanted. So what that tells us is that 2 times 3x plus 2 times x minus 2 are the correct factors for this here. And since we do have it in factored form, we do have two things multiplied together to equal 0. And according to the zero product property, it's telling us that either 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, or that x minus 2 is equal to 0. Because whenever we have two or more things multiplied together to equal 0, one of these has to be 0. And now that we have it set up this way, we can solve for x. So with our 3x plus 2, the first thing we can do is subtract 2 from both sides. And our 2 minus 2 would be 0, telling us that we have 3x is equal to negative 2. Then we would divide both sides by 3, telling us that x is equal to negative 2 thirds. We can do the same thing with x minus 2. To add 2 to both sides, our negative 2 plus 2 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. So it's telling us that our two solutions for this here is 2 and negative 2 thirds. And since neither one of these is a restriction, the value of x that would make this denominator be 0, both of these solutions work. Questions on this here? Questions on anything we've done so far? We're ready for the next one. All right. Let's look at this one here. This one here we have 4x plus 1 over x plus 1 is equal to 12 over x squared minus 1 plus 3. And when we go through and solve these, and this one's a little bit different because of the x squared minus 1. Before we find restrictions, before we start solving, we want to make sure that each of these denominators is factored as far as possible. Now, up to this point, we haven't had any that needed to be factored. But x squared minus 1 is a difference of perfect squares. And it factors in the form of a plus b times a minus b, where a is what we multiply together or by itself to get the first term. In this case, it would just be x and x. And our b term, what we multiply by itself to get 1 would just be 1 and 1. So x squared minus 1 is going to factor to x plus 1 times x minus 1. Now that helps us find our restrictions, and it's also going to help us be able to multiply by the least common denominator a little more effectively. Questions on this here before we find restrictions? Now the two places where the denominator can be 0 is either at x plus 1 or x minus 1. And for x plus 1, we can subtract 1 from both sides, telling us that if x is negative 1, we'd have a denominator of 0, and it will not factor. With x minus 1, we can add 1 to both sides, and our negative 1 plus 1 would be 0, leaving us with x. And 0 plus 1 is 1, so it's telling us that if x is positive 1 or negative 1, we would have a restriction. We'd have a value of x that would make that denominator be 0, and it does not work. So now that we have our restrictions, we can start solving. And as we look at these two main fractions, one of the first things we're going to need to multiply everything by is x plus 1. Because if we multiply this far left term by x plus 1, we would get x plus 1 over x plus 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. So that's going to simplify out. In the middle term, the x plus 1 and x plus 1 will cancel. They will simplify out. And 3 doesn't have a denominator, so it's not going to simplify. But since not all the denominators are simplified, we still have an x minus 1 in our middle term. It means that we're going to have to multiply all 3 terms by x minus 1 also. So we had to multiply everything, all 3 terms, by x plus 1 and x minus 1. And by doing that, we simplified both of the 2 denominators. We didn't have 3 this time, we just had 2. Both of those simplified after multiplying by x plus 1 and x minus 1, leaving us with 4x minus 1, or 4x plus 1, times x minus 1 is equal to 12 plus 3 times x plus 1 times x minus 1. And now that we have it in this form, we can multiply out and get this equation equal to 0. So when we distribute the 4x times x is going to be 4x squared. 4x times negative 1 is negative 4x. 1 times x is going to be plus x. And 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Is equal to 12. plus. Now we're going to multiply the x plus 1 times x minus 1 first. Now our x times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative x. 1 times x is plus x, and 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Now at this point here, we can combine like terms. Our negative 4x plus x is going to be 3x. So we get 4x squared minus 3x minus 1 on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we still have the 12. And if we combine the like terms inside our parentheses, our negative x plus x is going to become 0. They cancel out. Now the right-hand side, has not been completely simplified. We still have to multiply through by 3. 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times our negative 1 is negative 3. Now we could start trying to move terms at this point, but because we do have like terms on the right-hand side, it's going to be helpful to simplify those first. And our 12 minus 3 is going to give us positive 9. Questions on this here? Now we can start moving terms, subtracting or adding terms to both sides to get this equation equal to 0. Now when we subtract 3x squared from both sides, our 4x squared minus 3x squared is going to give us x squared. Minus 3x minus 1. The 3x squared minus 3x squared on the right-hand side will simplify or cancel out, leaving us with 9. Then we would need to subtract 9 from both sides to get this equation equal to 0, telling us that we have x squared minus 3x minus 10 is equal to 0. Questions on how we got to this point? Questions on any of this so far? At this point, we can factor this here. Since the third term is negative, our signs are going to be opposite. One's going to be positive, one is going to be negative. Now we're going to look at the factors of the first and third term. Well, our factors of x squared are x and x. Our factors of 10 are 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. We can try 2 and 5 first. And if we check this here, x times negative 5 would be negative 5x. 2 times x is going to be plus 2x. And negative 5x plus 2x would give us a middle term of negative 3x, which is the middle term we wanted. So these are indeed the correct factors. And it helps us because it tells us that these two expressions, x plus 2 and x minus 5, when multiplied together equal 0. And because of the zero product property, it says when we multiply two or more things together and get 0, one of them has to be 0. So if x plus 2 is 0, we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. Those will cancel and we will get x by itself. 0 minus 2 is going to be negative 2. So it tells us that when x is equal to negative 2, we do make both sides of this equation be the same. So it is a solution. With our x minus 5, we would add 5 to both sides. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0, giving us x by itself. And 0 plus 5 is 5. So our two solutions for this here are negative 2 and 5. And because neither one of these solutions is a restriction, it's not one of our values of x that would make that denominator be 0, it tells us that both of these solutions will work. Both of these are values of x that will make both sides of our rational expression be the same. Because if we tried this and plugged it back in, 4 times negative 2 plus 1 over negative 2 plus 1, and we want to see, is it the same as 12 over negative 2 squared minus 1 plus 3? We just have to work this out. On top, 4 times negative 2 would be negative 8 plus 1. On bottom, we have negative 2 plus 1. Negative 8 plus 1 is going to be negative 7. Negative 2 plus 1 is going to be negative 1. Negative 7 divided by negative 1 is going to be 7. If we simplify the right-hand side, negative 2 squared, negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and 4 plus 3 is 7. Both sides give us the same value. We can do the exact same thing with 5, and it would work out to be the same. So if we did the left-hand side, 4 times 5 is 20. So 20 plus 1 over 5 plus 1. 20 plus 1 is 21. 5 plus 1 is 6. And 21 over 6 is going to reduce to 7/2. If we do the same thing on the right-hand side, we'd have 12 over 5 squared minus 1 plus 3. 5 squared is 25. 25 minus 1 is 24. 12 over 24 is 1/2. Gives us 3.5. And 7/2 is 3.5, or 3 1/2. So these are the same values, so both of those solutions work. Questions on any of this here? Questions on anything we've done so far? So our next one we're solving is 6 over x minus 3 is equal to 8x squared over x squared minus 9 minus 4x over x plus 3. Now the middle expression, x squared minus 9, that denominator needs to be factored before we start solving. Now x squared minus 9 is indeed a difference of perfect squares, and it's going to factor to x plus 3 times x minus 3. And we need it factored for 1, to be able to find our restrictions, and 2, to be able to multiply by the correct expression so that each denominator will simplify out and we don't multiply by too much. Because each expression we multiply by over what we need will add an extra solution to it. It's going to add an extra value of x that we will get when solving. And each of those values of x that we get over, or that we apply to it that we don't need, will always be a restriction. Now to find our restriction, we set the expressions on the denominator equal to 0 to see what values of x will make them be 0. And for our x plus 3, it's going to be negative 3, because negative 3 plus 3 would be 0. Plus 3, we would add 3 to both sides, telling us that if x is equal to positive 3, the x minus 3's would be 0, giving us a denominator of 0, and those do not work. So the two values of x's we cannot have are positive 3 and negative 3. Now, the first thing we can multiply through, because again, we want to multiply each of these expressions by something so the denominators will simplify. The first thing we can multiply everything by is x minus 3. Now, on the far left, the x minus 3 over x minus 3. X minus 3 divided by x minus 3 will simplify to 1, and so those are gone. In the middle expression, the x minus 3 there on top and bottom would simplify. But however, on the far right, we have x minus 3 on top, we have x plus 3 on bottom. Those would not simplify. So for this one here, we need an x plus 3. We need to multiply everything by x plus 3. So especially the fraction on the far right, the x plus 3 and x plus 3 would cancel. We got 1 on bottom, so the one we multiplied by it will simplify out. In the middle, the x plus 3 on bottom and the one we're going to multiply it with will simplify out. And by multiplying everything by x plus 3 and x minus 3, all of our denominators simplify. And what that leaves us with is 6 times x plus 3 is equal to 8x squared minus 4x times x minus 3. Questions on how we got to this point? Now at this point here, we can distribute the 6. 6 times x is going to be 6x. 6 times 3 is 18. Equals. We'll still have 8x squared. But here we're going to distribute that negative 4x. Negative 4x times x is going to give us negative 4x squared. Negative 4x times negative 3, the negative and negative make a positive. 4 times 3 is 12, and we still have our x. Now, since we do have quadratic terms, we have those x squared terms, we're going to need to get this equation equal to 0. But before we start doing that, it is going to be helpful to combine like terms. So our 8x squared minus 4x, our 8 minus 4 is going to give us 4. So we have 6x plus 18 is equal to 4x squared plus 12x. Now the first thing we can move is either the 6x or the 18. I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides because our 6x minus 6x would be 0, giving us 18 is equal to 4x squared. 12x minus 6x is going to be plus 6x. And we get this here. Let's focus in. Next thing we're going to do is subtract 18 from both sides. 18 minus 18 is 0. So we do finally have the equation equal to 0. And since 18 does not have any like terms to subtract from, we just put minus 18. Getting us to this point here. So we have 4x squared plus 6x minus 18 is equal to 0. Now the next thing we can do is factor out the greatest common factor, which in our case is 2. So we're going to divide each of these terms by 2 and put that greatest common factor 2, the 2 we're factoring out. We're dividing out of each term in front, telling us that we have 2 times 2x squared plus 3x minus 9. And once we have that greatest common factor out, we can go on and factor the quadratic expression. Since the third term is negative, our signs are opposite. We have plus and minus. Our factors of 2x squared, well, the x squared is going to be x and x, and the 2 is going to be 2 and 1. Now our factors of 9 are 1 and 9 or 3 and 3. We're going to try 3 and 3 first. And we check this to make sure we got the correct middle term. 2x times negative 3, 2 times negative 3 would give us negative 6x. 3 times x is going to be plus 3x. negative 6x plus 3x. Negative 6 plus 3 would give us negative 3. So we'd have negative 3x. Which is the correct number, but wrong sign. Because we need it to be positive 3x, not negative. So to fix that, we switch the signs. Now 2x times positive 3 would be positive 6x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. So 6x minus 3x would give us 3x. So now we do have the correct factors. And we also have two or more things multiplied together that equals 0. So we're saying that either 2x minus 3 is 0 or x plus 3 is equal to 0. And at this point here, we can solve for x. So the first thing we can do with our 2x minus 3 is to add 3 to both sides, because our negative 3 plus 3 will cancel out, leaving us with 2x on the left-hand side. 0 plus 3 is 3. Then we would divide both sides by 2. 2x divided by 2 is just going to be x. 3 divided by 2 is 3 halves. So we have that x is equal to 3 halves. Now we're going to solve our x plus 3. First thing we're going to do is subtract 3 from both sides, because that will simplify the left-hand side to just x. And our 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Now, because we did our restrictions first, the restrictions told us that x cannot be positive 3 or negative 3. So that tells us that our solution of x equals negative 3 is an extraneous solution. It does not work, so we cross it out, we exclude it. So our other value of x, 3 halves, is our solution. It is the value of x that will make this true. And if we wanted to, we could go back and plug 3 halves in on both sides. And see if both sides give us the exact same value. Now, when we do this here, we could also do it in the calculator. We've done it by hand once already today. But if we do this in the calculator, we grab our calculator and say 6 over 3 halves minus 3. And it tells us that the left-hand side of the equals is negative 4. Now we're going to do the same for the right side. So we'd have 8 times 3 halves squared over 3 halves squared minus 9 minus 4 times 3 halves over 3 halves plus 3. And it tells us that it is also negative 4. And since both sides have the exact same value, it tells us that 3 halves is the correct answer. Now, if we tried our other value of negative 3, it's not going to work. We're not going to get a value. At least for not all of it. Because if we look at the left-hand side of the equation, 6 over negative 3 minus 3, well, negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6. 6 divided by negative 6 is 1. If we look at the right-hand side, negative 3 squared on top would be 9. Negative 3 squared on bottom would also be 9. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. And on bottom we have negative 3 plus 3. So for the right-hand side, 8 times 9 is 72, but our 9 to minus 9 is 0. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. We have two divisions of 0. We cannot divide by 0. So this does not work, telling us that our only solution for this here is 3/2. Now our solution of negative 3 is an extraneous solution. It's a solution that works in the process of solving, but does not work in the original problem. Questions on this here? We're going to finish this too.